Hello and welcome to 1000 Actually Fun Books, and today we're doing Circe by Madeline Miller, a book of mythology, basically mythology drama. I would label it as drama. So this book is about, the plot revolves around one of the Greek, I wouldn't call her a god, but a Greek demigod. So her father was the sun god Helios, and her mother was a nymph. They're all Titan blood, I guess you could say. And the plot involves her life from birth until, I wouldn't necessarily say death, but until the end, we'll put it that way. I won't quite spoil it by telling you exactly what the end is, at least not at this point. So the thing about this is it isn't a specific plot like a quest or something like that. It's more just the events that happen in her life ongoing. So Circe starts out in the court of the Titans, who are kind of the equivalent of the Olympus gods, except they're like a different faction. It's not important. But what is important is a whole bunch of mythology is wrapped up in this. So Circe sees events happen that are part of the Greek myths, along with myths of other cultures. So for example, she sees Prometheus, who in the Greek mythology is the Titan that brings fire to mortals and thus creates, I guess, civilization. And he gets punished for it because the gods only want the humans and mortals to be miserable so that they will give the gods gifts. Anyway, so that's one example. She also sees like the Minotaur and the maze. She sees Icarus and wax wings. She talks to Hermes a lot, the Greek god with the wings on his shoes. She deals with Jason and the Golden Fleece, Odysseus from the Odyssey, just lots of different combinations of these characters from Greek and other mythologies, and her circumstance of this. Her life is kind of one as a side character in a lot of these, in ways that she's not originally in the myths. Like in the original myth of Prometheus, she's not there, but the author inserts her in. In the original myth of the Minotaur, she is not there, but the author inserts her in, etc., etc. The only one that I am aware of that she shows up in, canonically, would be the Odyssey, with one of Odysseus's, Ulysses, however you want to pronounce it, one of his trials is to land on Circe's island, where she is basically a magical witch and can transform his men into pigs, and he has to rescue them. So that's the only adventure that I am personally aware of with Circe involved, and that is certainly in this one. But she's involved in others in this book. So the things I like is all that mythology. I mean, that's kind of fun. It almost feels like a crossover, like if you had, I don't know, DC, Batman, Superman crossed over with Spider-Man and the X-Men or the Avengers or something like that. It's like that crossover type of thing, like the way they successfully did in the Marvel universe. You have Captain America and Iron Man, and then they end up having the Avengers where they're all together. This one feels like an Avengers where they're all together, where it's just fun to see, oh, look, there's that myth. I remember that myth, and how is she involved or changing it or not? Usually not, but somehow a little side adventure with the mythological story. So I like that part. I also liked Circe herself for the most part, especially at the beginning. She is probably the only one of the, and we'll put gods in quotes because she's not really a god. She's more like a demigod, I guess, goddess, demigoddess. She's considered more of a nymph adjacent. Anyway, she's pretty much the only one of the entire pantheon of deities that they deal with that has any kind of compassion or any kind of empathy. Everybody else is self-centered and cruel and prideful and just unpleasant as a character. I mean, nobody is nice. Nobody is kind, except Circe. So she, for example, her brother, nobody wanted her brother. So Circe is like, I will raise him, and does so. And nobody's appreciative. Not her mother, not her father, not her brother, nobody. So she has some compassion on this baby that would be left alone, and nobody cares. So Circe, for the most part, is pretty good. Now, this doesn't stay this way. Part of her character arc is really to become jaded and bitter. Not totally. She's not unsympathetic even in that circumstance, but she does become a more hardened character as the story progresses. And there is some softening towards the very end, but it's not a lot. It's not like, wow, amazing ending, she's just found everything she ever wanted or anything like that. But it's not a horrible ending, so I will give it that. However, there's quite a bit I dislike about this. So one of the main dislikes, one of the really horrible things about this is everything to do with sex. All the relationships, okay? It is grotesque for the most part. Gross. Think about this. How does the Minotaur come about? What exactly is coupling there? It's kind of a gross thought, right? That's the kind of gross level that this devolves into. There's also assault in this. Now, none of this is explicit. I mean, it just is more like this happened, maybe one page of talking about it to some extent, but for the most part, it's written in a way not to be romantic or to be interesting or to, get you hot under the collar. It's meant to be shocking and disgusting for a lot of it. And then there's, of course, a lot of just, these people went to bed. And that's about, like one sentence worth of their relationship. I mean, that's pretty much it. So it's not a romance. There's no romance in this book pretty much at all of any level. Nothing that would be taken as romance. This is a drama. It's about the relationships, mostly about Circe's internal understanding of herself, how she grows to understand herself and the world that she lives in. It's not really about love in any respect or action or adventure or mystery or anything like that. It's really just about Circe's circumstances and how that impacts her life. Okay, another thing I don't like is I felt like this was a book of unrelenting cruelty and misery. So Circe's life, it seems to be like betrayal after betrayal after betrayal. So like I mentioned before, she is raises her brother, and her brother, you kind of find out, is completely indifferent about her. I mean, Circe pours out love towards this child, and her brother is like, you're an idiot. Why would you ever love somebody? Why would you care about somebody? Why would you do that? And doesn't even think about her later. It's kind of like he's forgotten her. He doesn't care about her. Completely indifferent. And that's the same thing with her mother. It's like her mother gives birth and all she cares about is what status the birth of this child will bring her. It has nothing to do about the child. She doesn't care about the child. It talks about at the beginning that another nymph raises one of the children, and the only reason that she did that was hoping to have more status in the court. And when she discovered that it gave her nothing because Circe's mother didn't care about her or the babies, then the nymph just left. Like, whatever, this didn't gain me anything, so I'm not going to do it anymore. Nobody cares about it anyway. And again, her father is the same way, does not care one whit about her except as maybe a pawn. No man that Circe comes in contact with, except for maybe at the very end, really cares about her, cares about what she can do for them, maybe cares about the coupling, but doesn't care about her. And this is kind of unceasing misery. It's kind of unceasing awfulness. I mean, it's like one event after another that Circe is like, crushed and, made a fool of, or has something horrible happen to her. I mean, this is basically what the whole story is. That doesn't make for a fun story. I don't sit there and go, wow, that's so much fun to see somebody's life be miserable. So in the very end, I'm not going to give details, but in the end, she does find somebody that you kind of get the impression that she might be happy with. Although again, it's not a romance. It's just, oh, this seems like a nice guy and he seems interested in her and being nice to her. So great. We've found sort of true love, I guess, indifferently. It's true love. And it has a little bit of a cliffhanger. And I say that in the sense of, it's an ambiguous ending. What happens to Circe in the end? Because, and here's a little spoiler, just at the very end, she takes a potion and she thinks about it ahead of time. So you get what the possible outcomes of this potion could be. But she takes it and you don't find out what those potions are. So it's the results of what it is that she took it. So it's an ambiguous ending. Now it fits the story, I think, because this isn't a story where it feels like it should have a happily ever after or necessarily a big tragedy. I mean, I guess a tragedy might have been a more appropriate ending for this story just because it's pretty much tragic throughout the whole thing. But maybe the author was like, I don't really want to go that depressing. It wouldn't have sold as well, probably. But I would say the ending fits it, but it's not fun. So overall, I'm going to give this just an okay rating. I didn't like it enough to recommend it. If you really like to be, read something about somebody being miserable, then sure. I would say it was well written, which is why it's not in my Hall of Disappointments, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So just okay. So now on to part 2. I decided that after this drama, I want to do a truly pure action adventure book. So we're gonna do Clive Cussler's Spartan Gold. And it's the first of I'm pretty sure, a really long series. Again, I don't know anything about this book, which is typical for these books that I'm reading, but it sounds like it's, an action movie kind of story. So something different that I think will be fun. Okay, so I think that's it for tonight. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.